If you're in your early to mid-20s and you feel like you're financially drowning, you're not imagining it. You're not lazy. You're not bad with money. You're part of the brokest generation in modern history, and I have the receipts. In the next 14 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why 48% of Gen Z is now financially insecure, why this is not your fault, and what you can actually do about it. Because here's the thing, the game has changed, but nobody told you the new rules. My name's RP, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, specifically why everyone my age is broke despite doing everything right. If you're someone who got the degree, got the job, followed the advice, and you're still living paycheck to paycheck, wondering what you did wrong, you need to hear this. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you want real talk about money that actually makes sense. Look, I'm not here to sugarcoat this or give you some just stop buying avocado toast nonsense. What's happening to Gen Z financially is unprecedented. And the worst part? We've been gaslit into thinking it's a personal failing when it's actually a systemic collapse. So let's talk about the data nobody wants you to see, the economic forces nobody wants to explain, and why you're not crazy for feeling like everything is impossibly expensive. The numbers that prove you're not crazy. Okay, let's start with the headline number that should terrify everyone. 48% of Gen Z is now financially insecure. That's according to a 2025 study, not 2008 during the Great Recession, not during COVID, right now. Almost half of everyone in their early to mid-20s cannot reliably pay their bills. For context, in 2024, that number was 30%. It jumped 18 percentage points in 1 year. Let me say that again. In 12 months, the number of financially insecure Gen Zers increased by 60%. That's not a trend, that's a crisis. But wait, it gets worse. Here's what else happened to Gen Z in just the last year. 1. Gen Z credit scores dropped by 3 points on average. That's the steepest decline of any generation since 2020. Your credit score, the thing that determines if you can rent an apartment, get a car loan, or even get hired for some jobs, is actively getting worse. 2. The average Gen Z student loan payment is now $526 per month. That's $526 that Gen Xers and Boomers never had to deal with right out of college. We'll come back to this number because it's absolutely devastating. 3. 52% of Gen Z thinks about their debt most or all of the time. That's not financial stress, that's financial trauma. 4. 45% of Gen Z is now considering moving abroad because they literally cannot afford to live in the country they were born in. Read that again. Almost half of an entire generation is thinking about leaving the country because they can't afford to exist here. Now, you might be thinking, okay, RP, but those are just statistics. What does this actually look like? Let me paint you a picture, because I know this is someone watching right now. You're 25 years old. You did everything right. You went to college, probably took out loans because your parents couldn't afford to pay. You graduated, maybe during COVID, maybe right after. You got a job, probably not in your field, probably pays $40,000 to $50,000 if you're lucky. Here's your monthly reality. Rent, $1,200, and that's with roommates. Student loans, $526. Car payment, $350, because you need it to get to work. Car insurance, $180. Health insurance, $150 through your job. Phone, $70. Groceries, $300 if you're careful. Gas, $120. That's $2,896 per month, and we haven't even talked about utilities, internet, or God forbid you want to have a social life. Your paycheck on a $45,000 salary after taxes is about $2,800 per month. You're $96 short every single month, before you buy toilet paper, before you go to the dentist, before your car breaks down. And that's if nothing goes wrong. That's if you don't get sick, if your laptop doesn't die, if your car doesn't need new brakes. This is why 46% of Gen Z reported they couldn't afford their monthly bills last year. Not because they're irresponsible, because the math literally doesn't work. Okay, so now you know you're not crazy. The question is, why is this happening? What changed? Because here's what boomers and even some Gen X will tell you. I paid my way through college working part-time. I bought a house at 25. You just need to work harder. So let's actually look at what's changed, because the data is wild. The college trap. First, college costs. This is the one everyone knows, but nobody really processes. In 1980, the average cost of a 4-year public university was $10,231 in today's dollars. That's total, 4 years. In 2024, $104,108, 4 years. That's a 917% increase. Know how much wages increased in that same time period? 19%. So college got 917% more expensive while your earning power went up 19%. Cool. But it gets better. Let's talk about housing. In 1980, the median home price was $47,200. The median income was $21,020. So a house cost about 2.2 times your annual salary. In 2024, median home price is $412,300. Median Gen Z income is about $40,000. That's 10.3 times your annual salary. Boomers bought houses for 2.2 times their income. You're trying to buy houses for 10.3 times your income, and they wonder why you're not homeowners yet. Oh, and rent. In 1980, the average rent was $243 per month, which was about 14% of median income. Today, average rent is $1,967 per month, which is about 35% of Gen Z median income. You're spending twice the percentage of your income on rent compared to previous generations, just to exist in an apartment. Now, let's talk about the thing that makes this all impossible: wages. The federal minimum wage in 1980 was $3.10. Adjusted for inflation, that's $11.67 in today's money. The federal minimum wage today is $7.25. It's literally lower than it was in 1980 when you account for inflation. But forget minimum wage. Let's talk about your good job. The median entry-level salary for a college graduate in 1980 was $17,000. Adjusted for inflation, that's $64,000 in today's money. The median entry-level salary for a college graduate today is $55,000. You're making $9,000 less than your parents did at the same age, but everything costs exponentially more. And then there's the student loan anchor. Remember that $526 average monthly payment I mentioned? The average boomer graduated with $1,070 in student loan debt. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $4,000. The average Gen Zer graduates with $30,000 in student loan debt. So you're starting your career with 7.5 times more debt than your parents, making less money in real terms while everything costs exponentially more. And they call your generation entitled. They call you lazy. You're not entitled, you're drowning, and the water keeps rising. But here's the thing that makes this even worse. It's not just that you're financially struggling, it's that you've been told it's your fault. The gaslighting campaign. Think about the narrative you grew up with. Just go to college and you'll get a good job. Work hard and you'll succeed. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Anyone can make it if they try hard enough. You did all of that, and you're broke. So what happens? You internalize it. You think you're the problem. You think if you were just smarter, harder working, more disciplined, more frugal, you'd be okay. The shame economy. This is why 59% of people report having financial anxiety, not stress, anxiety. Clinical, constant, consuming anxiety about money. You can't talk about it because everyone's pretending they're fine. Everyone's posting their achievements on LinkedIn, their vacations on Instagram, their new apartments on TikTok. Meanwhile, you're eating ramen, avoiding opening your credit card statement, and lying awake at 3 a.m. wondering how you're going to make rent. And the worst part? You feel like you're the only one, like everyone else figured it out except you. But look at the data. 48% of Gen Z is financially insecure. You're not the exception, you're the norm. The comparison trap. Social media has made this exponentially worse. You see your friend who made it. They got a tech job, they travel constantly, they seem to have it all figured out. What you don't see is they're $40,000 in debt, their mental health is collapsing, and they're one medical emergency away from bankruptcy. You see the influencer showing their day in the life with their perfect apartment and their sweet green lunches. What you don't see is they're living off credit cards and their parents' money, desperately trying to make it until a brand deal comes through. Everyone is faking it. Everyone is struggling. But because we can't talk about it honestly, we all think we're uniquely failing. Here's what kills me about all of this. This isn't just about money. Financial insecurity affects everything. The life timeline disruption. Previous generations had a timeline. Graduate college at 22, get a job at 23, move out at 24, get married at 26, buy a house at 28, have kids at 30. Gen Z's timeline looks like graduate college at 22 with 30K debt, get a job at 23 that barely covers expenses, live with roommates until 30, maybe get married if you can afford the wedding, buying a house? LOL. Kids in this economy? You're not choosing to delay life milestones. You can't afford them. The mental health crisis. And it's destroying mental health. When 52% of Gen Z thinks about debt most or all of the time, that's not idle worry. That's constant psychological strain. Financial stress is linked to depression, anxiety, relationship problems, substance abuse, and even physical health issues. You're not just broke, you're exhausted, anxious, hopeless. The anger phase. And honestly, you should be angry. You should be angry that you were sold a lie, that you did everything you were supposed to do and the system failed you anyway. You should be angry that previous generations pulled the ladder up behind them and then called you lazy for not being able to climb. You should be angry that you're working harder for less and being blamed for an economy you didn't create. But anger without direction doesn't help. So let's talk about what you can actually do. Okay, real talk time. I'm not going to give you some just stop going to Starbucks nonsense. That's insulting, and it doesn't work. But there are things you can control. Not to fix the system, you can't do that alone, but to survive it, and maybe even thrive despite it. Strategy 1. Reject the shame. First, and I cannot stress this enough, stop blaming yourself. You are not financially insecure because you're bad with money. You're financially insecure because wages haven't kept up with costs for 40 years. Talk about it with friends, with family, online. Break the silence. When we all pretend we're fine, we stay isolated and ashamed. When we're honest about struggling, we realize we're in this together. Strategy 2. Play the game differently. Second, understand that the old rules don't apply. You can't play the same game your parents played and expect to win. That might mean living with roommates longer than you want to, staying in your parents' house to save aggressively, prioritizing remote work for flexibility and lower living costs, considering moving to a lower cost of living area or state, building side income because one job isn't enough anymore. Is it fair that you have to do all this when previous generations didn't? No, absolutely not. But fair doesn't pay bills. Strategic does. Strategy 3. Focus on what actually matters. Third, optimize for the big 3: housing, transportation, and food. Those are 60 to 70% of your expenses. That's where the money goes. Housing, if you can cut your rent by $200 a month by getting a roommate or moving to a cheaper area, that's $2,400 per year. That's not nothing. Transportation, if you can avoid a car payment, use public transit, bike, carpool, that's potentially $500 to $600 saved per month. That's $5,000 to $7,000 per year. Food, groceries versus eating out is a $300 to $400 difference for most people. Learn to cook a few cheap, healthy meals. It's not glamorous, but it works. I'm not saying to live like a monk, I'm saying focus your cuts on the things that actually matter, not the $5 coffee that financial gurus obsess over. Strategy 4. Build skills that pay. Fourth, invest in skills that actually increase earning power. Your degree got you in the door. Now you need skills that get you paid. That might mean learning high-demand software, not necessarily coding, but tools employers need, building a portfolio of freelance work, getting certifications in your field, developing communication and negotiation skills. The fastest way out of being broke isn't saving harder, it's earning more. Full stop. Strategy 5. Build community. Finally, find or build community with people who get it. Financial stress is so much harder when you're isolated, but when you have friends who understand, who are in the same boat, who you can be honest with, you can share resources, split costs, support each other, actually enjoy life without the pressure to spend money you don't have. This isn't the pull yourself up by your bootstraps individualist nonsense. This is mutual aid. This is how people survive when systems fail. Look, I want to be clear about something. Individual action is important. You need strategies to survive, but individual action will not fix this systemic problem. What needs to change? Here's what actually needs to happen for Gen Z to not be the brokest generation. Wages need to rise to match inflation and productivity gains. Housing costs need to be regulated so they don't consume 40 to 50% of your income. College costs need to come down or student loans need to be forgiven. Healthcare needs to be affordable and not tied to employment. The minimum wage needs to be a living wage. These aren't radical ideas. These are the bare minimum for a functioning economy. And here's the thing, you do have power. 48% of Gen Z being financially insecure means millions of people. That's voting power. That's economic power. That's collective power. Talk about this. Vote for policies that address this. Support unions. Demand better from employers. Don't let anyone tell you this is just how it is or your generation needs to toughen up. No, the system is broken, and broken systems can be fixed. All right, let's wrap this up. If you take nothing else from this video, take this. You are not the problem. The economy is the problem. You are not lazy. You're working harder for less in a rigged system. You are not failing. The system is failing you. 48% of Gen Z is financially insecure. That's not a personal failing. That's a generational crisis. But crisis also means opportunity. Opportunity to do things differently, to reject the old narratives, to build something better. You didn't create this mess, but you might be the ones who finally fix it. If this resonated with you, do me a favor, hit that like button. It actually helps YouTube show this to more people who need to hear it. Subscribe if you want more real talk about money without the BS, because I'm going to keep making these videos as long as Gen Z keeps getting screwed over by the economy. And leave a comment. What surprised you most about these statistics? Are you part of that 48%? Let's talk about it, because the more we talk honestly about this, the less power the shame has over us. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, remember, it's not your fault, and you're not alone.